Call this Village of Greenhills Council meeting for November 26th to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Halter.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Ms. Osmanoglu.
Here.
Ms. Hermes.
Here.
Ms. Metz.
Here.
Ms. Walther.
Here.
Mayor Moore.
Here. Okay, and we have a new acting
Slash police chief slash manager.
manager tonight. Does it all. We have a prayer from Maria.
Lord, we ask you especially on this day before Thanksgiving to please keep in really close to your heart those people that have lost their dear one. And at that time on Thursday when they look at the table and there will be an empty chair, please hold them really close to your heart, give them the comfort that they need. And everybody else that is suffering of some kind of disease, alcoholism, drugs, any of the PTSD soldiers, that they would have some peace with their families, children, wives, parents, etc. Please, dear Lord, I beg of this today, in this day so close to Thanksgiving. And we ask this in your name, Brother Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, we have the minutes of the previous council meetings of October the 8th, 2019 and November 12th, 2019. Do we have any corrections to make? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. This is the time for residents to comment on matters before council. When recognized, please come forward to the lectern, give your name and address, and state your comments or questions. This is not intended to be a dialogue with council or village staff. If you have questions, the questions will be recorded and referred to the manager's office for response. This will allow time for thoughtful and thorough consideration to be given to each question. Council meetings are recorded for ease of transcriptions. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may not yield any or all of their time to other speakers. Okay.
Hi, my name is Patricia Bender. I am at 29 Handle Lane. I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving in advance.
You as well.
I was here at the October 8th meeting, and unfortunately, because we only have 3 minutes beforehand, we really don't get to discuss what's been said or addressed, and I was not in town on the November 12th. So what I would like to ask about is there appears to be in October and November 12th discussion of areas that I know I've addressed in the past in regards to the golf course and also putting up a sign. I'm aware that it's nice to have a sign, and I know from the shopping center and being a tenant, there's been quite a bit of discussion about putting a sign up. The size of the sign seems to be an issue for the village, and now the village has decided to put their own sign up, which appears to be costing a bit of a penny. The same thing with the golf course. I have asked every single year at the beginning of the year, what are your goals, what are your mission, and what are you looking to achieve within the year? And every year, I never get an answer. It appears to me, and I hope from what you have in your September meeting and your November 12th meeting, that these were goals, that these were thought about long before the September and the October and the November meeting. To me, being that you're using my tax money, as many of the other Greenhills residents, that to put out $60,000 for a sign, I think is quite a bit of money. To take the golf course and now change it over to a walking area that probably is going to cost us more money is a real concern when it comes to my taxes. And I think that in today's meeting, or no, I think it was November 12th meeting, there was addressing raising a fee for our plates. Now, as a resident of Green Hills, and I know most of you are, that I'm sure that that is a concern for you. Now, I have 3 golf carts and 2 cars. Every year I register my golf cart for $25 for tax purposes, I'm sure, and I get a plate for every single one of my vehicles. So that's quite a bit to expend out and then to add more money on top of that. And then, again, to bring back up next year about a tax levy for the schools is just really a financial burden. We owe hundreds of thousands of dollars as a village. So to me, I find it hard to understand how we can come up with this money to do these things when we don't have any money, but yet you find money. And I hope that these were goals that you had put together long before the discussion. One other thing in regards to the discussion is it would be really nice if you would put something in the journal about this in advance, instead of having to come to a meeting or read the notes and already it's amended. And there's been no discussion. I think me as a village feel left out of what you're doing. And then to come up and then, you can't talk because you only get 3 minutes.
Right.
It's very, very frustrating to feel like you can get anywhere with this.
Okay,
And
thanks.
another thing I would appreciate is if you would introduce the new people on council.
Okay, would you
I
take
don't
your
know
seat,
who they
please?
are, I don't know where they live, and I would
Take your seat,
appreciate-
please. Thanks,
Thank you
Pat.
very much.
And I might add that since I've become mayor, we've increased the amount of time you have to talk from 2 minutes, which had been the standard for 30 years, to 3 minutes. So we gave a little more. Right. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, moving on. Acting Municipal Manager, Chief Ferdelman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We've got 5 items under new business for you to consider tonight. They're all resolutions, everything from making, tax advances during the year 2020, which is pursuant to Ohio law, and ending up with a resolution on property and liability insurance. And those will be up for your consideration shortly. The rest of the notes that we have are all holiday related. The first is the Light Up Green Hills, which is going to be a really fun night we're all looking forward to. That'll be on Friday, December the 6th from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. on the Commons. We welcome our residents and others to spend a couple of hours enjoying the traditional bonfire. Of course, there'll be the horse-drawn wagon ride. There'll be dinner and desserts from the food trucks, watching an ice carving and making ornaments and many more fun things. If residents are unable to join us that evening, we ask them to join in by turning on their holiday lights at 6 p.m. to be part of our Light Up celebration. And then returning this year is the Light Up Toy Drive. You can bring new, unopened, unwrapped toys to light up, or you can also drop the toys for the toy drive here in our municipal building in our lobby downstairs anytime during our daytime lobby hours. Lastly, this mailbox is now open for business. If you or your young one has a letter for Santa, mark your calendars, don't be late with the letters. Once again, Santa's helpers have placed a mailbox at the gazebo on the Commons, and the mailbox will be in place through December 17th, and that's so we can ensure that all the letters arrive at the North Pole. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. All right, any comments or questions? All right. Moving on, our law director is not here tonight, but he did issue a report, and we got copies of that, but I'll briefly summarize it. He talks about Senate Bill 206, legislation introduced by Tim Schaefer, and it would mandate a 10% income tax credit to taxpayers who work but do not live in a municipality that collects $100 million in annual revenue. So in other words, if you worked in the city of Cincinnati and you lived in Green Hills, you would get a 10% credit if this passes. He talks a little more about that, but part of the concern over this issue is the state legislature getting in on infringement upon the home rule authority of municipalities when it comes to income tax regulations. And the other item he has is pending legal matters, the Antoine versus Greenhills in state court. After oral arguments was held on July 31st, 2019, the Court of Appeals issued a decision dismissing the appeal. The appellate filed a notice of appeal with the Ohio Supreme Court and found a memorandum explaining why the Ohio Supreme Court should choose to take the appeal. We have already filed a memorandum opposing jurisdiction with the Supreme Court. We are currently waiting on a decision from the Ohio Supreme Court as to whether it will accept this case. And that's all for the law directors. And don't have a report for the clerk. You don't, right, okay. And then we move to the Chief of Police, Neil Ferdelman.
Thanks, Mayor. On a bright note, we have very little violent crime, and we hope to continue that trend in our community, but we are often plagued with thefts, theft offenses and burglaries. And we had one particular theft spree that started in mid-October. On October 17th, we investigated a burglary in the J section. Multiple items were taken from an attached garage there. Flash forward to the 22nd of October, we investigated another burglary. Also on the 22nd, a handgun was stolen from a car parked in the J section. We then had contact with an individual who emerged as a suspect on October 26th when officers were deployed on stakeouts in the J section. On October 31st, we learned of similar offenses in Forest Park. And we collaborated with Forest Park and ultimately the Colerain Police Departments during the investigation and located items that were stolen here in Green Hills. That led to our suspect. He was arrested on November 19th in Cincinnati. He was charged with 3 counts of receiving stolen property by us and some additional charges from other jurisdictions. We had multiple tools and other residential items that were taken in these thefts. They were recovered and they'll be returned to the owners at the conclusion of the case. An accomplice was also arrested on a felony receiving stolen property charge and connection with these crimes after a search warrant was executed over in Colerain Township. Officer Zach Clark headed up our investigation. He was assisted by officers from Forest Park and Colerain. Some of these crimes would not have occurred if valuables hadn't been left, so anyone that is watching, there was some discussion on next door Green Hills as to whether or not it's a good idea to lock your car. Yes, absolutely, it's a great idea to lock your car. Typically what we have found over the years is that the suspects in these crimes have addiction issues and they are looking for easy items to pawn or for cash. And the more trouble that you give them, the more likely they will move on to the next easy target. So please lock your cars, don't leave valuables in your car, and especially don't leave valuables in plain sight. We did get a note from a resident over in the J section. She said, I wanted to say thank you to the officers that patrol this area. I have noticed for a while now that they come through the area about every hour during the overnight with the floodlights on, checking the area. My security camera picks them up. At first I thought they might be looking for someone, which they could be, but after a while it appeared they were being proactive in patrolling, and for that I thank them. Please let the officers know that they are noticed and are appreciated. And the officers that were assigned to those tasks were Officers Andy Moore, Eric Tricase, Phil Means, Cody Ritchie, and David Bacon. We had another incident on November 7th, a domestic violence that was in the F section. And we made multiple calls over there. On the first call, we found out that an ex-boyfriend had kicked in the front door, broke the front door glass, and subsequently fled on foot. A few hours later, he returned and he broke out the kitchen window. He then threatened to kill the resident and her 2 children. Officers searched for the suspect in the area and he wasn't found. We later received a call from a child at that residence and said that the suspect was hitting mom. When we got there, he was sitting inside his car preparing to leave. Officers directed him to turn off his car. Instead, he put it in gear and started towards one of the officers. The officer evaded him. The car then struck a cable television box, continued through 2 front yards, and eventually was stopped by striking a tree. He initially refused to exit the car, but when the officers warned him that his window would be broken out, he did so. He, before the officers arrived, assaulted the resident by kicking her in the head and biting her on the back of her leg and injuring her shoulder, and he was charged with multiple counts. As a matter of fact, I talked with the victim tonight to see how she was set for Thanksgiving. We're so lucky in this community to have people that contact us and say, what can we do to help? One particular resident wanted to buy Thanksgiving dinner for this particular person. She assured me that she'd already secured the funds and the meal, and I told her to give us a call if she needs anything else. So we're very grateful to the members of our community that are so generous. On November 6th, we were on routine patrol, and one of the little technology toys that's nice to have is something called an LPR, which is an automatic license plate reader. And as officers drive down the street, or sometimes people ask why our officers sit in the driveway here or other places on Winton Road, that LPR picks up thousands of cars going by. And as the officer was driving in the middle of the overnight, the LPR alerted on a stolen car. He received a hit confirmation, and it was stolen over in Claremont County. He began the process of impounding the vehicle. As the vehicle was being readied for towing, a person came out of a nearby residence and asked to get items out of the vehicle. We ran him, and he had outstanding felony warrants for grand theft. So he was taken into custody and turned over to Union Township Police. So the technology such as the LPR helps us work a whole lot smarter. We received a couple of thank yous from residents and other citizens. A Cincinnati resident actually received a citation. She paid the citation before a court date. She said that the officer was very courteous to her. When she called the department, the clerk, Vonda Sequoy, she said she couldn't have been nicer. She said if she had to be issued a ticket, she was glad it was in Greenhills. And then a resident in our H section recently sent us a batch of delicious homemade cookies. I think the mayor and I might have split one or two.
We did. Yeah.
The following note accompanied the treats. To all Greenhills police officers, thank you so much for all you do each and every day. There is no way this tiny token of my appreciation can express my gratitude. You are loved and prayed for. Many thanks also to Officer Rob Lenhoff for helping with my situation when there were so many more important things to do. So we do appreciate those notices that we get. They kind of wipe out the other ones. Lieutenant Ward and I attended the CALEA conference. CALEA is the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. The conference was in Covington, Kentucky, which allowed us to go at a much reduced cost. There was no travel costs or lodging costs involved. So we drove down there and back every day for a week. We received a whole week's worth of training in the accreditation process in preparation for our on-site, which will be about a year and a month from today. We were guests at the Lois Alzheimer's Center for a Coffee with a Cop event. We had a great time and shared some good times and some snacks and some coffee with the residents over there. They were very eager to be hospitable and show us around and show us their rooms, and we truly enjoyed that day. Our officers also went on November 11th on Veterans Day to both the Primary North and the Intermediate School, and the students had Honoring Our Heroes Day, and it was a wonderful event. We would ask that if you have internet access, you might take a look at our website page. We're coming up on the holidays. There's going to be lots of online shipping going on, in-store shopping. Both of those now come at increased risk with cybercrime. Particularly the online shopping tips are very helpful. They point out some things that can keep you protected as you shop online and even in stores in terms of using credit cards and leaving your purchases in the car. And also beware of porch pirates. That's one of the newest crimes that's coming with so many people using Amazon and other shopping services. Packages are often left unattended, so one suggestion is to see if your employer will let that be shipped to your work, or a trusted neighbor that's home during the day, or another friend. That's a lot better alternative than being the victim of the theft. During the month of October, we investigated 6 accidents, 11 crimes, 406 other incidents. Of a total of 696 contacts, 204 of those were dispatched, and 492 of those were self-initiated by our officers. We provided assistance to the public in 185 instances. We assisted other agencies 48 times. We made 38 criminal arrests and 54 traffic arrests. Thank you, Mayor.
Any comments of the chief?
I just wanted to comment that I've been receiving an inordinate amount of phone calls for numbers that they are being labeled as potential risks. Also, some of them actually, because was not picked up, left a message about your social security number. That happens like once a week for the last 4 weeks. So everybody's trying very, very hard to get your information somehow, or you to pick up and answer the phone. I also have received, I don't know how many pieces of mail having to do with the electric company, with the gas company. You have to call and get a better rate. Let us come over and figure it out for you. All kinds of things that the public should be aware of, because there are potential risks of anybody trying to put one foot inside your door.
There is a proliferation of crimes that criminals are trying to make very easy money by not leaving their premises and using the telephone or using the mail. Typically, every day when I get home, there's 7 or 8 messages on the answering machine. A good rule of thumb is to have an answering machine. If you don't recognize the number, don't answer.
Correct.
A lot of our seniors will think that's rude not to engage, but truly in this day and age, it's a better policy. If you don't know the number, I just don't answer them. And if it's very important, they'll leave a message, and if it's anything that it's a person I know or it's legitimate, I'll call back, but that's usually about 1% of the calls that I receive.
Chief, I have 794 contacts on my phone. If that number that is calling is not a known number, I don't think it's an important person that I should answer.
That's very good advice.
And they also, another thing that I've been noticing is they try to use the first 3 numbers of your number
Yeah.
as well, and then just keep changing the last 4. So
Sadly, you
see-
can't trust technology anymore because
Yeah.
it can come up and actually say Village of Greenhills
Yes.
or some other
Yeah,
entity,
yeah.
and it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, chief. Possibly, is there any award we could nominate the car thief for? I know they had Darwin Awards each year. Possibly some kind of thing like that.
We'll look into that.
All right, moving on. I've got a few items. Court receipts for the month of September. The ending bank balance was $15,458.18. The state of Ohio received $2,369.50 for that. Hamilton County got $91.50. The Village of Greenhills, $9,403.70. For the month of October, balance was $87.90.21. State of Ohio got $1,437, Hamilton County $54, and the Village of Greenhills $6,422. And I did get a letter from Duke Energy.
Legit
That-
one. A
A
legit. letter.
legitimate
legit
one,
one.
yes, right.
Okay.
And they're filed with the Public Utilities Commission for a rate reduction. Not a big one, but a decrease in our gas tax, or our gas charges from Duke. So it's part of their they got a rate increase for improving the gas mains, and evidently they've done better money-wise and don't need that full amount. So you'll see 11 cent per month average reduction in your electric bill or your gas bill if this passes. And then speaking of gas and electric, the village is in a consortium of various other communities for aggregation for electric and gas rates. And so no matter what you get in the mail, it's hard to beat the rate that the village has for joining the aggregation that we're in to save you money. And I don't have the numbers, but last year when we went through this, it was like $1.5 million that Greenhills residents that have been in that program for the last 12 years have saved. Let's see, The electric has been turned on at the Commons. The Duke hooked up the electric to the main pole where we had the underground wiring go bad, and that's been replaced. And leaf collection will be extended because we're still not finished with all the leaves coming down. And that's all I have. Any questions? All right. Moving on then, Recreation Cable TV, Natasha Metz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only have one thing, and that's we saw such a great turnout and expansion of Harvest Fest this year that we're starting early. So the applications for the 2020 Harvest Fest, which is going to be October 3rd, will be available December 1st. So if you want to go ahead and get your application out there, jump the gun. If you're a home crafter and you want to start your craft build up for having a booth next year, that's going to be available starting December 1st. So we're getting it out there to try to get a wide breadth of vendors for next year. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, moving on, Intergovernmental Affairs, Laws and Rules, Maria Baltha.
We're having a meeting coming up on December the 10th for Laws and Rules, and I will be at
6 p.m.
6 p.m., yeah.
All right. Service and Streets, Jennifer Osmanoglu. Is that close?
It is. I don't have anything at this time.
Oh, okay. All right, Community Development, Jeff Halder.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We already mentioned about December 6th, Light Up Green Hills. I also would like to mention that the historical, Green Hills Historic Society, the museum will be open during that time as well. So make sure you visit there that evening. A couple response to some of the comments made by Patricia Bender. The sign, one thing, it is expensive. Digital signs are expensive, and originally it was going to cost less. We looked at the resolution, and the resolution that we were getting at the lower price just was not sufficient, so it went out for bids. But it's also important to keep in mind that it's a revenue-generating sign, so it will not, it'll take quite a bit of time to offset the total cost, but that needs to be figured into the thinking. The other thing, too, is we have codes, and we're doing our very best, I believe, when it comes to the shopping center, trying to maintain a professional, well-kept facility. One part of the driving force behind this was there was a denial to actually produce a sign that met those codes. So I do think it was a wise thing to take it under our wing and make sure it's managed well. I do think it's a good decision by far versus what we were looking at as an alternative. The other thing is there's been multiple attempts at the golf course. Hiring professionals, hiring social media outlets. It's a national trend that golf courses are still struggling and closing. The fact that the park was an original, on the original map and was the original intent for that area doesn't hurt that it is going to be made a walking path, and it would save us money, and it doesn't cost as much to care for that as the golf course as is. The school tax, we can't really do anything about the school tax. That is not our jurisdiction. Is another thing. But one thing I want to mention is I really think it's important to do what Dr. Bender has done and others coming and speaking, because lots of times I'll look on some of the social media and there's lots of conversations that speak for the village, and it's very important to come and be heard. So I think that's important. And on the other end of it, it's our responsibility to research, and in some cases, I think we're very timely about that. In other cases, I think we could improve. One thing that I have a concern about, and I just heard again from a resident, is the zone, as far as people, personal property not being cared for. I have 2 pieces of property that I drive by that I will follow up with Yvonne on, that I just cannot believe. It's one thing to put something in your yard and say it's art, and you have the freedom of speech to claim it as art, and it's another thing to actually just have piles of junk. I saw photographs in certain areas of the village that have multiple dollar store grocery carts and just piles of junk. I don't know what we have to do, but I don't know if we have a special committee to look into this. It's just not fair to the property owners around those properties. And I realize this has nothing to do with freedom of speech. It has to do with caring for your property in a healthy, responsible way. And I don't know if we need to get tougher or how we can get tougher. We definitely want to do the right thing, the ethical thing. Maybe we need to sit down with our service and see what they're deciding is in and out. But I know I've brought this up multiple times, and I think it's really, really time that we take this seriously. And to be fair, the demographics of our village has changed tremendously. I don't think we're insensitive to people. Like if there's an elderly person that cannot care for their property like they once could, I can think of many volunteers and many ways that we could help them if that's the case. But when it's sheer negligence, it's just not right to let it go on the way it's been going on. But it is a trend that I know Yvonne has fought, a trend that we aren't proud of. But when you have a changeover, and we've changed in some degree in some cases, from homeowners to renters, and I know renters that do a fabulous job of caring for their property, but there are still some that that is not a priority. And so I'd like to look into that further. I don't know if I can put that under the umbrella of community development, or if we should have a special committee to just analyze what's going on with some of those properties. But I'll defer to your recommendation.
Well, we'll see what Yvonne has to say first. and
Okay, good. Thank you
where
very
we are.
much.
If we need to change some of our ordinances, if we can, on some of these things. But I would think our ordinance would cover getting rid of grocery carts. Okay. Safety, Melanie Hermes.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. Safety Committee will meet on Tuesday, December 10th at 5:30 p.m., right before the Laws and Rules Committee. I do want to thank everyone who came out to the turkey raffle. I did get a note from Chief Spaeth. He says he does not have the final numbers, but he believes it's still early, but he believes that they have done better this year than they have in the past couple years. There was a little bit of a change up. There was a spaghetti dinner, desserts, and some raffle baskets. I came up with my family, with my husband and my daughter Lala, and then also my mother, and we had a wonderful time, and all the space were there, which was great. So we had a good time there. And then he also just had some hydrant servicing is completed. Thanks to everyone who supported the raffle and those who won turkeys. Their cards are being delivered this week, as well as those who won the grand prize. And he hopes everyone has a great holiday, and I'm going to agree with him here. Be safe in the kitchen this week. This is a big time for kitchen fires, and everyone be safe and be careful.
You might want to add driveway if you're actually.
Oh, yes, and also driveway fires for those who do the
Deep fried.
deep frying. And if you do deep frying, which makes a delicious turkey, do not do it in an enclosed space. Make sure to get it out so that there's venting. So everyone be safe and have a happy Thanksgiving. Also, I did want to mention, we were talking about safety with social, with phone and everything else, with social media. If you are going to be out of town, don't post it on social media. Don't share your photos until you get back to your house, because you don't want to let people know that your house is empty. So just a great reminder not to post things that give people, even though most of the people who are connected with you on social media are your friends, there's always one or two that somehow got onto your friends list that you're not sure how you know them. So just be mindful of what you post. Thank you.
Good, thank you. All right. Finance and Audit, Jack Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Committee actually met on November 19th. Since we're a new committee with Jennifer Osmonoglu and myself, we thought it was a good chance to meet with the manager, mayor, and the finance director and get an opportunity to get up to speed as far as the financial calendar and current issues and concerns. We discussed and reviewed a recent completed biannual state audit of our records, which was a positive outcome, and reviewed a few of the recommendations that were made by the state in the audit. I've handed out tonight at your place is a hard copy of the end of October monthly recap dashboard. And I just thought I'd point out a couple of highlights on that. You'll notice that as far as the income tax revenues in the general fund, we're up about 9%, and that's held steady pretty much over the entire year on the month-to-month basis. Clearly, it's a result of increased payroll, most likely due to the construction activity within the village. Real estate tax is trailing just a mite, but it's actually, if you look at the numbers for the September recap, it's exactly the same numbers. Overall, the general fund revenues as well as the general fund balance are both up healthier. So things are looking very positively there. As far as expenses, on the expense side, we're doing well there. Expenses year to date, year-to-year comparison is down, as well as transfers from the general fund to other accounts. So overall, finances have definitely taken an improvement track. The finance director and the manager are currently doing a review of the appropriations for year 2020, or 2020, pardon me, and that will be presented to council prior to the December 10th meeting for your review, and we'll be needing to do an approval of that appropriations at the December 10th meeting, because those need to be filed with the county auditor by December 31st. Also at your place, kind of following that same thought track, I've reprinted some of the existing voted and non-voted debt schedules, as well as the grand total for both. 2020 sees a slight increase in the debt payments due to bond timing. If you remember, previous members will remember that had to do with when those bonds were revalued a couple years ago. But the continuing reduction of the debt payments going into 2021, 22, and the 2023 year, those bond payments will continue to go down. While we have improvement in revenues, it's prudent to stay the course and remain conservative in our budgeting as much as possible, and I anticipate that as far as 2020. The finance director will be finalizing the financial statements for 2019 in January, February timeframe. in order to file with the appropriate entities at the end of February. And those highlights will be available for the council's retreat in March, once we set a date for that. Want to thank the citizens of the village for overwhelmingly approving the renewal of the street maintenance levy for another 5 years, as they did in November. Next November will be the 0.70 mil recreation levy will be up for a 5-year renewal, and which would, as expected at this time, represents no increase in the current taxes to property owners. And finally, bids for health insurance have been renewed. Currently, the premiums for 2020 have been proposed with a 5% increase over 2019, which seems reasonable, and would assume that a resolution will follow soon for council's approval along that line. Unless you have any further questions, that's the end of my report.
All right. Okay, unfinished business, we have none. New business, Resolution 2019-33-F, resolution requesting the county auditor to make tax advances during the year 2020 pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 321.34. And that's so that when the county gets your tax money that you mail in for property taxes, they don't wait until June to give us the money if they get it in January. So we have that, but we have to pass legislation to get them to give us our money.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 2019-33-F, resolution requesting the county auditor to make tax advancements during the year 2020 pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, Section 321.34. Whereas the Ohio Revised Code allows for a taxing authority to request advanced payment from the county auditor funds derived from taxes or other sources to the county treasurer, which may be held on account of a location subdivision. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Village of Greenhills, Ohio. Section 1, the auditor and the treasurer of Hamilton County, in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 321.34, be required to draw and pay to the Village of Greenhills upon written request of the Finance Director, Deborah Heimer, to the county auditor funds due in any settlement of 2020 derived from taxes or other sources payable to the county treasurer to the account of the Village of Greenhills and lawfully applicable for purposes of the current fiscal year. Section 2, Clerk of Council of the Village of Greenhills be and hereby is directed to transmit a certified copy of this resolution to the Auditor of Hamilton County, Ohio. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after earliest date allowed by law. Mr. Mayor, I move for the passage of this resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All right. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Halter?
Aye.
Ms. Hermes?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. Metz?
Aye.
Ms. Osmonoglu?
Aye.
Ms. Walther?
Aye.
Okay, Resolution 2019-33F passes. Next resolution is Resolution 2934 S&S, declaring certain village property as surplus property and authorizing the municipal manager to properly dispose of said property. And that's Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 2019-34-SNS, declaring certain village property as surplus property and authorizing the municipal manager to properly dispose of said property. Whereas council has determined that there is certain village property that is not needed or is unfit for public use as set out in Ohio Revised Code Section 721.15. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Village of Greenhills, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring, Section 1, that the village property listed in the attached Exhibit A and included herein by reference is declared to be surplus property no longer needed for municipal purposes or unfit for public use. Section 2, that the municipal manager is hereby authorized to sell said property, the estimated value of which is less than $1,000, without any formal bidding procedure, or to sell said property that exceeds $1,000 to the highest and best bidder. Section 3, that the municipal manager is further authorized to utilize any internet auction services available in order to dispose of said property. Section 4, that the municipal manager is further authorized to use any other method deemed appropriate and necessary by the municipal manager in order to dispose of said property in order to obtain the most value for said property. Section 5, that this resolution shall take effect and be in force from and after the earliest period allowed by law. Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt this resolution.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any comments or questions?
No.
All right, clerk call the roll.
Ms. Hermes?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. Metz?
Aye.
Ms. Osmanaglu?
Aye.
Ms. Walther?
Aye.
Okay, resolution number
Oh,
29.
Mr. Hall.
Oh,
I'll throw an aye in there too.
that passed without him anyway.
You had enough votes, so.
I had enough votes. Okay, resolution 2019-35-LNR, extending a moratorium for additional period of 180 days on the granting of any permit allowing vape lounges and related uses, tattoo and body piercing establishments, and retail dispensaries, cultivators, or processors of medical marijuana within the village of Green Hills. Ms. Walther?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 2019-35-LNR, extending a moratorium for an additional period of 180 days on the granting of any permit allowing vape lounges and related uses, tattoo and body piercing establishments, and retail dispensaries, cultivators, or processors of medical marijuana within the village of Green Hills, Ohio. Whereas the village of Green Hills, Ohio desires to coordinate regulations regarding the location and operation of businesses within the village, including vape lounges and related uses, tattoo and body piercing establishments, and retail dispensaries, cultivators, or processors of medical marijuana, and whereas council is determined to review the ordinances governing these particular uses in order to provide clarity and fulfill the purposes of the zoning code. And whereas council recognizes that amending the ordinances governing these particular uses must be done under the processes required by the zoning code, requiring, among other things, a recommendation from the planning commission and a public hearing before council, which could require several months to complete. And whereas it is recommended that the village manager review and make recommendations on the issue to conform to the village's goal of providing adequate regulations to ensure the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. And whereas council has previously instituted a moratorium on the granting of such permits and has now determined it is necessary to extend such moratorium. And whereas a continued moratorium on the granting of permits within the village of Green Hills will allow the village time to accomplish these goals. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Village of Green Hills, Ohio, and members elected thereto concurring, Section 1, the Green Hills Village Council seeks an additional moratorium on permits for the establishment of vape lounges and related uses, tattoo and body piercing establishments, and retail dispensaries, cultivators, and processors of medical marijuana to preserve the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Green Hills, Ohio. Section 2, that Green Hills Village Council seeks to limit the duration of the moratorium and to request immediate and continued investigation and review of proposed comprehensive regulations on the establishment of vape lounges and related uses, tattoo and body piercing establishments, and retail dispensaries, cultivators, and processors of medical marijuana within the period of the moratorium. Section 3, that Green Hills Village Council hereby imposes an additional moratorium on permits for the establishment of vapes, lounges, and related uses, tattoo and body piercing establishments, and retail dispensaries, cultivators, and processors of medical marijuana for the period of 180 days from the effective date of this resolution, or until such earlier time that said moratorium shall be determined, and directs that no permits shall be issued for these uses during the period of the moratorium. Section 4, the Green Hills Village Council further finds that a moratorium for a period of 180 days is reasonable and will allow a study for comprehensive regulations. Section 5, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period allowed by law. Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt this resolution.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All right, hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lee,
Aye.
Ms. Metz,
Aye.
Ms. Osmanaglu,
Aye.
Ms. Walther,
Aye.
Mr. Halter,
Aye.
Ms. Hermes.
Aye.
Okay, resolution 2019-35-LNR passes. Next, resolution 2936-F, resolution adopting the 2020 Greenhills fee schedule. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 2019-36-F, resolution adopting the 2020 Greenhills fee schedule. Whereas the village is determined that it is necessary to assess fees for certain services, and whereas council is determined it is necessary to update the current fee schedule, now therefore be resolved by the Council of Village Green Hills, Ohio, that Section 1, the Council of Village of Green Hills, Ohio hereby adopts this fee schedule as set forth in Exhibit A, attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, this resolution shall be and is in effect from and after the earliest period allowed by law. Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions?
I didn't see a whole lot of change in.
No, it was just one thing, I think.
Was it the non-resident golf?
No, it was the garage rent.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you missed that last
Yeah.
meeting. We discussed that briefly.
Okay.
Okay. All right, clerk call the roll.
Ms. Metz,
Aye.
Ms. Osmanaglu,
Aye.
Ms. Walther,
Aye.
Mr. Halter,
Aye.
Ms. Hermes,
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Something special.
Okay. Resolution, shoot, I put it away. 2019-36-F passes. Okay, next resolution is 2019-37-F, resolution awarding the 2020 property and liability insurance coverage to the Public Entities Pool of Ohio. Mr. Lee.
And I apologize for not seeing the garage fee.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay, moving on, resolution.
You were busy.
Yeah, well, I was.
Okay.
Resolution 2019-37-F, resolution awarding the 2020 property liability insurance coverage to the Public Entities Pool of Ohio. Whereas the Village of Green Hills must have continuous insurance coverage and has been presented with an acceptable insurance proposal with the Public Entities Pool of Ohio, also known as PEP. Now therefore be resolved by the Council of Village Green Hills, State of Ohio, that Section 1, the insurance policy proposal from PEP, brokered by USI Insurance Services, LLC, for the issuance of automobile, general liability, police professional liability, public officials liability, property insurance, and other insurance as determined by the municipal manager in the name of the Village of Green Hills, is hereby accepted at a cost to the village in the amount of $47,704. A copy of the proposed policy is on file with the municipal manager. Section 2, the municipal manager is hereby authorized and directed to execute any and all documents necessary to implement said coverage. Section 3, the finance director is hereby authorized and directed to make payment to PEP in the amount of $47,704 for 2020 coverage. Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage and approval. Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions?
There was very little increase in the cost in that, and PEP does a terrific job with it.
Yep.
And just for clarification, Mr. Dries does not work for USI, so there was no, he
Right.
works for a different company.
And I remember the old days when we were paying $80,000 and $90,000 a year for coverage, so much better. Hope we can keep those rates. Okay, clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Esmonoglu,
Aye.
Ms. Walther,
Aye.
Mr. Halter,
Aye.
Ms. Hermes,
Aye.
Mr. Lee,
Aye.
Ms. Metz.
Aye.
Resolution 2019-37-F passes.
Dave, just a clarification. My first glance at this, I thought, this is pool insurance for this price?
Yeah.
Just to clarify, this is...
Well, it is kind of.
Where you throw the
It's
insurance from.
the total insurance. I'm
total.
like, that's quite a
Right.
figure, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Moving on, calendar,
Light up Greenhills, December 6th,
6th.
6 to 8.
At 6 to 8.
And that, along with that is the annual toy drive, so please bring a new unwrapped present to either the Light Up Green Hills, or you can drop it off here at the police station.
And drop off your letters to Santa at the mailbox before December 17th.
Also a reminder, the Safety Committee meeting Tuesday, December 10th at 5:30 PM.
Laws and rules at 6 o'clock, at December the 10th.
And that will be our only meeting in December, as the other date falls on Christmas Eve, and we plan to spend that with our families.
And our next meeting will be a combination of the regular meeting and the work session, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then also, most people should have noticed, our normal trash collection day is Wednesday. So Christmas falls and New Year's Day fall on Wednesday. So those are the only two holidays that affect our trash schedule. So our trash will be picked up on the Thursday after Christmas and the January 2nd as well, also a Thursday.
Do we have a date for the Light Up of Green Hills to judge houses?
Well,
A
we're
specific date, no, we just said the week of December 16th.
Yeah,
We haven't set any date on that.
but we can. So I don't know how many people are wanting to go.
So-
I can take, well, I can get 4 people in my car. If the 3 in the back want to get real snuggly together.
So be listening to our next meeting to find out when we're going to do the judging of your Christmas or holiday lights, as we will go out the week of December 16th, someday during that week. So listen on December 10th and make sure your lights are on.
I already saw some tonight.
Yeah, some people getting a jump while the weather's nice to put up the lights.
I'm closing my eyes until Friday.
Hopefully the wind doesn't blow any of them away, but hopefully the wind will blow most of our leaves east.
Yeah, on our street.
All right, nothing else, meeting adjourned.